Welcome to you, Mother Truckers. Prepare yourself for a pit stop into two wildly different flash fiction stories that you sent our way. We've got tales of survival in the cold vacuum of space and chaotic journeys through the infinite possibilities of the multiverse.
Exactly. These two stories, which you brought to our attention, really present a fascinating contrast. One delves into the ultimate isolation and how one individual confronts oblivion, while the other, well, it throws us headfirst into delightful absurdity and the power of adapting to the utterly unexpected.
Right. In our first flash fiction story, Drifting Stars, we're going to plunge into the desperate situation of an astronaut stranded on a dying space station, the Goliath. You shared this story with us, and it immediately struck me as a powerful exploration of what happens when we're stripped of connection and pushed to our absolute limits. We'll unpack the astronaut's increasingly dire circumstances, his fading hope, and the unexpected discovery that really twists his internal struggle.
hmm And then, for a complete change of pace, we have our second flash fiction story, Quantum Sneeze. This one throws us headfirst into the absurd reality of a woman whose sneezes send her careening through dimensions. You also flagged this one for us, and it's a fantastic example of how even the most bizarre premises can explore compelling themes, in this case resilience, and even finding a strange sort of agency in utter chaos.
So for this pit stop, our mission is to really dig into the core of these two stories that you've shared. We want to understand how each protagonist grapples with their truly extraordinary circumstances and what these tales might tell us about survival, connection, and perhaps even discovering unexpected meaning when reality takes a truly bizarre turn. Let's start by taking a closer look at Drifting Stars.
Right. The story begins with a very stark setup. An astronaut left behind on the Goliath station as a caretaker after the rest of the crew evacuates. Months pass with no sign of a replacement. Just the sheer duration of that isolation. As you experience it through the astronaut's eyes, it starts to feel incredibly oppressive.
It does. He's there anticipating a return that just never materializes. You can just feel that slow, dawning realization that he's been forgotten. And then the core problem emerges: a critical oxygen leak. Suddenly, the stakes are no longer just about loneliness. It's a minute-by-minute fight for survival against a rapidly dwindling resource.
And that physical threat is compounded by the complete communication blackout with Earth. Initially, there might have been, a residual hope that his distress calls would be heard. But as the silence stretches on, that hope likely erodes, replaced by this profound sense of being utterly cut off, not just physically, but in every meaningful way.
There's that line in the story you highlighted. I wasn't a hero anymore. I was a liability, a line item written off in some budgetary meeting light years away. That really hits hard, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It speaks to this feeling of being reduced from a person with value and purpose to just an inconvenient expense casually discarded from afar. It makes you think about how easily individuals can feel lost within larger systems.
Absolutely. And it raises a question about our inherent value as humans. What happens when those structures that typically validate our existence, our work, our relationships, even just being acknowledged, are completely removed? This astronaut is facing that void.
Yet, even in the face of this, there's this incredible resilience, a stubborn refusal to simply give up. Despite the rapidly thinning air, he risks everything to venture into the dangerous parts of the station to locate and seal that oxygen breach. The story notes it's less about hope and more about a stubborn refusal to suffocate quietly. It's a primal drive, isn't it?
It really speaks to that fundamental will to survive, that inherent spark within us that fights against extinction, even when logic might suggest it's futile. It's not necessarily about a grand vision of rescue, but about that immediate, visceral urge to keep going, to draw the next breath.
And then comes this really pivotal moment. Amidst the absolute silence, he detects this faint hum, and it leads him to the discovery of an old Earth broadcast. But here's where it becomes truly unsettling. This isn't a beacon of hope or a rescue signal tailored for him.
No, not at all.
It's just the echoes of everyday life carrying on back on Earth.
What's particularly striking about the content of this broadcast, as you pointed out, is its random nature. It's a jumble of old crew footage, political speeches, the triviality of pop stars, the significance of elections, all these pieces of a world continuing without him, completely oblivious to his struggle. It really underscores the vastness and, well, indifference of the universe.
And his reaction isn't relief, it's described as primal fury. It makes you wonder about the psychology of that moment. To finally hear something from home, only to realize you've become utterly irrelevant, a ghost in a world that hasn't even paused for your absence. It's a brutal realization.
It forces you to confront the idea of your own significance, doesn't it? We all like to think we matter, that our lives have an impact. For this astronaut, that broadcast is a stark reminder that the world continues, often without even noticing individual disappearances. That raw emotion of fury could stem from a deep-seated sense of injustice.
The location of the breach is almost ironic, isn't it? It's in the comms array itself. He has the means, potentially, to reach out. He could fix it and try to plead for rescue, but his encounter with that broadcast has fundamentally altered his motivation. His focus shifts from survival to something else entirely.
Exactly. Instead of clinging to the hope of rescue, he makes this profound and almost nihilistic decision. He chooses to become a ghost in their machine. It's a complete inversion of his initial goal. Survival is no longer the driving force. It's about making a final, indelible mark.
And his final act is so deliberately chosen. He repairs the breach, ensuring that the old broadcast continues to stream out a testament to a life that was. Then, knowing it's his end, he cuts the secondary oxygen line. His last transmission isn't a distress call, but pushing a love song out to Earth's general frequency. Such a strange and powerful final message.
What's so compelling about that last act, as you noted, is its lack of appeal. The story explicitly calls it a curse, a deliberate act of defiance. He's not seeking salvation. He's aiming for a form of perverse immortality, to be remembered not for his life, but for the manner of his death. It's a chillingly effective way to reclaim some agency in his final moments.
It really is. It's this final, desperate grab for control in a situation where all control has been lost. And those final lines you pointed out, they'd remember my name not for how I lived, but for the stubborn, lonely, angry way I chose to die. It leaves you with this lingering sense of unease and forces you to consider what truly drives us when facing the void. Okay, let's pivot completely now and plunge into the wonderfully bizarre and, I have to say, much more chaotic world of quantum sneeze.
Prepare for a truly wild ride. This flash fiction story throws us into the deep end right from the start with the most wonderfully absurd catalyst. A sneeze during a seemingly mundane board meeting that results in our protagonist instantaneously vanishing and being replaced by a llama.
A llama. And it just spirals delightfully out of control from there, doesn't it? Each subsequent sneeze acts as this unpredictable interdimensional portal, flinging her to increasingly outlandish and often perilous locations. One minute she's in a jungle teeming with oversized parrots, the next she's facing down a gigantic polar bear in a snowy wasteland, followed by a quick jaunt to a medieval castle. It's like the universe has developed a bizarre sense of humor at her expense.
Exactly. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, the narrative introduces interdimensional bounty hunters. Apparently, this kind of uncontrolled, sneeze-induced dimension hopping is not exactly looked upon favorably by some cosmic governing body. They deem it reckless endangerment, which, given the potential for disrupting reality, has a certain twisted logic to it, I suppose.
So her life transforms into this frantic blur, a constant state of involuntary displacement, coupled with the need to evade these interdimensional law enforcement officers. We get these hilarious glimpses of her trying to survive in these utterly bizarre settings. A world where currency is literally made of chocolate, a seemingly innocent meadow inhabited by dangerously fluffy creatures. It's a perpetual state of bewildered panic and frantic adaptation.
Driven by the sheer necessity to understand and hopefully control her condition, she seeks out the enigmatic Riftwalkers Guild, this clandestine organization that supposedly holds the secrets to navigating the multiverse. The very location of their headquarters, accessible only on Tuesdays in a dimension with perpetually flipping gravity, underscores the inherent strangeness of this world. It's quite something.
And the diagnosis she receives is as wonderfully absurd as the premise itself, the Wanderer's sneeze. Apparently, she's not just unlucky, she's a nexus point, a living glitch in the fabric of reality, and her sneezes are just her body's chaotic way of trying to find some sort of equilibrium in a fundamentally unstable situation. It's a wonderfully imaginative explanation.
The cure, or rather the approach to managing her condition, is brilliantly unconventional. It's less about finding a physical remedy and more about a fundamental shift in her perspective. The Guildmaster's advice, control is an illusion, becomes a central tenet. And the training methods, like being given knitted wings and pushed off a ledge in an upside-down dimension, perfectly encapsulate this embrace of the absurd.
It's that idea of surrendering to the chaos, isn't it? Instead of constantly fighting against the unpredictable nature of her sneezes, she starts to learn how to work with them. She begins to turn this seemingly uncontrollable curse into a surprisingly effective tool, in a way.
Precisely. We see her starting to outsmart the pursuing bounty hunters by strategically timing her sneezes, inadvertently teleporting them into the middle of a synchronized swimming event in one dimension or an intensely competitive alien pastry competition in another. It's a testament to human ingenuity, even in the face of utter absurdity.
And eventually, she manages to carve out a new kind of normal for herself. Her life is still punctuated by these random interdimensional leaps, but she learns to adapt, to integrate this bizarre reality into her everyday existence. A sudden blizzard on a date becomes an opportunity for a quick dimension hop to somewhere warmer, and dealing with unexpected dinosaurs at a board meeting just becomes, well, Tuesday.
The story culminates in this fantastic transformation. She evolves from being a victim of her own unpredictable biology to a force of nature, a walking interdimensional glitter bomb. It's a powerful reclaiming of her narrative and embracing of her unique, albeit chaotic, reality.
And it concludes with this wonderfully defiant, almost ominous final thought. The world better brace itself. It's like she's not just surviving, she's thriving in the chaos and perhaps even about to unleash it on the more mundane corners of the multiverse.
So in these two flash fiction stories that you brought to our attention, we've explored two vastly different responses to extraordinary circumstances. Drifting Stars presented us with a profound isolation and a final defiant act against being forgotten. What struck you most about the astronaut's final choice? Did his anger resonate with you, or did you find another layer of meaning in his last transmission?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The anger feels very real, very justified in a way. But then the love song, it adds this layer of tragedy almost. And Quantum Sneeze, on the other hand, took us on this incredibly imaginative and humorous journey through the absurd, ultimately highlighting the remarkable human capacity for adaptation and the possibility of finding a strange form of agency, even when reality itself seems to be having a laugh at your expense. Did the protagonist's full-hearted embrace of her unpredictable condition feel genuinely empowering to you? Or did it perhaps suggest something more about the nature of acceptance in the face of the uncontrollable?
I think it's empowering, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not resignation, it's finding power within the chaos. Accepting it doesn't mean giving up. It means learning to navigate it, even weaponize it. Both of these stories, in their own unique and compelling ways, delve into themes of control, or the profound lack thereof, when individuals are confronted with truly overwhelming situations. They prompt us to consider how we might react when faced with the seemingly impossible, whether it's the crushing solitude of space or a sneeze that shatters the boundaries of reality.
We really hope this pit stop into the worlds of Drifting Stars and Quantum Sneeze, stories you specifically shared with us, has sparked some intriguing thoughts for you. There are undoubtedly more layers to unpack in both of these fascinating tales. What aspects of these stories would you be interested in exploring further? What questions are still lingering in your mind?
We'd love to hear your interpretations. And if you enjoyed this exploration of the unexpected corners of flash fiction, don't forget to rate and follow You Mother Truckers for more captivating mysteries and wild tales.
We'll be back soon with another pit stop into the wonderfully weird and wild. Until then, keep those imaginations firing, and thanks for joining us.